The silent dismantling. She thought I was weak, so I gave my life away to my brother. No warning. For 3 years, I played the part. The quiet boyfriend, the safe bed, the small, insignificant planet caught in her orbit. But that night, over a glass of cheap wine in a loud bar, I heard the words that didn't just hurt me, they set me free. She laughed and told her friends I was too scared to ever leave, and that I'd fall apart without her. She thought she knew my weakness, but she had no idea she just signed the death warrant of our entire relationship. What she thought was a silent tantrum was actually the most methodical, strategic week of my life. I didn't fight or argue. I just strategically replaced her whole existence with a happier one, 3,000 kilometers away, and let her walk up to the finished product. I want to know, have you ever had a moment of crystal clear realization that completely changed your life? Drop your story in the comments below. Stick around to hear what happened when she finally showed up to beg, only to find my brother answering the door. This is how I walked away without saying a single word.
When Dominic was out with his partner Corinne and her friends at a busy coastal bar, he just stayed quiet while Corinne was confidently chatting. She was holding court with her clique, who always treated life like a big, continuous vacation. They were talking about a colleague's rough breakup, and Corinne chimed in, taking a snobby sip of her drink and vaguely pointing in Dominic's direction. She loudly declared, "Oh, that would be impossible with me. He's too timid to ever abandon me. He'd be lost without me." And everyone laughed as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. They looked at Dominic with this patronizing assurance. He was the quiet, reliable guy who worked remotely and barely had a life outside of hers, just a modest moon orbiting her. Dominic didn't argue or defend himself. He just stayed quiet. But inside, a chilling realization hit him. She didn't just think he needed her, she prided herself on it. For 3 years, Dominic, a senior infrastructural engineer who works on complex, high-stakes projects from his London flat, had let her misinterpret his private nature and preference for staying home as weakness and neediness. In that moment, her words didn't hurt him, they set him free. He's a strategic planner, after all, so he kept his facade up for another 20 minutes before telling her he was tired and leaving. She barely looked up, saying, "Fine, darling, don't rush back." Dominic walked out of that lounge a free agent, already planning an irreversible break. She believed he would fall apart without her, but he was about to prove he was the one who had been holding her up. A week passed, a week Corinne probably thought was just him giving her the silent treatment, but for Dominic, it was the most effective week of his life. He decided on a total, silent erasure with no confrontation. The moment he got home from the bar, he opened his laptop and emailed a headhunter who had been relentlessly pursuing him with a massive job offer in Vancouver. She replied in 10 minutes, asking if he could interview on Monday. While Corinne was sleeping off her drinks, Dominic spent the next 2 days in intense video interviews, and by Wednesday he had an official offer for a senior digital security role with a 40% raise and a huge signing bonus. He signed it right away. He had 5 days to move his whole life to a different country. Since he owned his apartment outright, which he bought before Corinne and for which she only paid a tiny fraction of the upkeep, she had no legal claim to the place. His next step was to contact his younger brother, Theodore, and his wife, Lucia, who were living in a small flat and trying to save for a house.
Dominic called his brother Theodore, one of the most genuine people he knows, and cut right to the chase. He was moving to Vancouver for a new job and leaving on Sunday. He told Theodore and his wife, Lucia, to move into his apartment, giving them all the furniture, the entertainment system, and everything else for free. It was his wedding gift to them. They just had to cover the utilities and building fees so they could save up for their own place. Theodore was completely shocked but got emotional when he realized Dominic was serious. Seeing the pure joy on Theodore and Lucia's faces as they walked through the apartment, already planning where to put their stuff, was one of the most rewarding moments of Dominic's life, confirming he was doing the right thing. Next came the move. Dominic hired a long-distance shipper, only packing his essentials, clothes, tech gear, journals, and a few mementos. He left everything else, like the designer sofas and the huge TV, for Theodore and Lucia.
Then he had the movers meticulously pack up all of Corinne's belongings, every piece of clothing, makeup, and shoe, into separate boxes. He rented a storage unit a few miles away, prepaid for 3 months, and had all her boxes moved there. Throughout this entire process, Corinne was sending him a constant stream of messages. First irritated, "Are you still sulking?" Then furious, "This is so juvenile, Dominic, just engage with me." And finally, mildly anxious, "Okay, I'm starting to get concerned. Are you all right?" He never replied. He just muted her. On Saturday, the day before he left, he changed all the apartment locks. He wrote a brief, clear note, put it in an envelope with the storage unit key, the access code, the address, and a bank check for the full amount of the minimal upkeep money she had paid him over the last 3 years. He didn't want any of her money. He left the envelope with the building manager with strict instructions to only hand it to Corinne personally. On Sunday morning, the movers collected Dominic's things. Theodore and Lucia showed up an hour later with their own moving van. Dominic gave them the keys, walked them through the security system, and showed them a bottle of vintage wine he'd left in the fridge. They hugged, he wished them well, and then he was gone, driving 3,000 kilometers to his new life in Vancouver without looking back. Corinne thought he was too passive to even disagree with her, but she had no idea he had just quietly dissolved their entire life and reconstructed a new one far away, all without a single word to her. A month later, after settling into a great penthouse in Vancouver and loving his new challenging, high-paying job, the inevitable confrontation finally happened, though Dominic witnessed the aftermath through his brother, Theodore, who called him in astonishment. Theodore said that Corinne finally went to the apartment about 3 weeks prior, after a full week of being unable to reach Dominic, and the building manager gave her the letter. Theodore wished he could have seen her reaction when she realized her entire reality had been wiped out. She found her belongings in the storage unit, but Dominic's number was disconnected, and his email filtered her messages directly to the trash. She was locked out, cut off, and completely in the dark about his location. According to a mutual friend, Corinne's initial reaction was fury. She told all her friends Dominic had an unstable breakdown and disappeared, playing the victim. But her story quickly fell apart as her friends realized she was suddenly homeless and struggling financially. The expensive meals, the luxury apartment, and the endless stream of Dominic's resources were gone, and without them she wasn't as captivating. She was forced to move in with a friend, a visibly stressful temporary fix.
Corinne spent weeks trying to figure out what to do next, clinging to the fantasy that Dominic had only done this to punish her and would eventually come crawling back because, obviously, he couldn't survive without her. This all led to last night, when she decided to deploy her ultimate move, the dramatic, tearful apology. She showed up at the apartment, ready to cry and forgive him for being so mean, fully expecting him to take her back. Theodore and Lucia were watching a movie when they heard a loud, insistent knock. Theodore opened the door to find Corinne standing there, already misty-eyed and with a dramatically sad expression, ready with her whole prepared speech. She looked right past Theodore, searching for Dominic, and started in a perfectly broken voice. "Dominic, I know I messed up. I was wrong. Please, can we just talk? I'll do anything. I can't live without you." Theodore, a big friendly guy, was totally confused. "I'm sorry," he said. "I think you have the wrong flat. My name is Theodore." Corinne froze instantly. The whole emotional act stopped dead. She finally looked at him, then looked around the apartment and started noticing the small changes. Theodore and Lucia's wedding photo, the different cushions, the pair of non-designer women's boots by the door. "What?" she stammered. "Where is Dominic? This is his apartment." Theodore cheerfully explained, "Oh, Dominic is my older brother. He moved to Vancouver a month ago for a prestigious new job. He's letting my wife and me live here while we save up for a house. It was an amazing gift from him." Lucia, a lovely, down-to-earth woman who is the complete opposite of Corinne, came to the door and smiled warmly at the distressed stranger. Theodore said the look on Corinne's face was unforgettable. It was the look of someone whose entire reality had just been destroyed. The story she'd been telling herself for weeks that Dominic was nearby, suffering and waiting for her, was a lie. He wasn't having a breakdown. He was thriving 3,000 kilometers away, and he hadn't just left her. He had replaced her presence in his apartment with a better, happier couple he truly cared about. The final crushing realization was that he hadn't just abandoned her. He had given away the entire comfortable life she thought she owned to his brother as a casual act of generosity. "He's in Vancouver," she whispered. "Yes, he's loving it there," Theodore confirmed. "He's thriving." Corinne just stood silently, her fake tears gone, replaced by a blank stare. The whole structure of her self-worth, built on the premise that she was strong and he was weak, was demolished in that single moment on the doorstep. She was just an annoyance, a stranger interrupting a happy couple's evening. She didn't say another word, simply turned around and walked away. Theodore and Lucia felt a little sorry for her, but mostly they were just amazed by how perfectly Dominic had planned his exit. Hanging up the phone, Dominic looked out at the Vancouver skyline from his new deck. He felt nothing for her. No anger, no pity, not even satisfaction. Just a deep sense of calm. She thought he'd fall apart without her, but she had it completely backwards. He had to leave her just so he could finally rebuild his own life.
That final moment on the doorstep, it wasn't about revenge. It was about defining my own worth. For too long, I let my quiet nature be mistaken for weakness, and I let someone else be my center of gravity. Leaving wasn't the end of me falling apart, it was the start of me putting myself back together. If you've ever felt trapped or undervalued in a relationship, I hope this story gives you the clarity to realize that the most powerful move you can make is often the silent one, the one you make for yourself. If you can relate to any part of this journey, please hit the like button to let me know I'm not alone. And if you have a message for Corinne or a piece of advice for someone who needs to make their own quiet exit, share it in the comments below. Subscribing helps me share more stories of finding freedom. Thank you for watching, and remember, you are not defined by someone else's opinion of your strength.